conspiracy theory. Which one is it? Right here? Which one is it? Is this one? Mrs. Puff? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna watch this one right quick and then we'll watch Scare Theater. I just want to see this first. The Mask. Oh man. Not Miss Puff.
This is not Mrs. Puff. You may think she's just SpongeBob's boating teacher, but you'd be very, very wrong. For years, she's been running from her dark and mysterious past, but it's finally caught up to her. And behind it all is a mastermind who's been secretly controlling her life and psychologically torturing her. If you guys thought my last two theories were mind-blowing, get ready for my biggest conspiracy yet. This is the Mrs. Puff theory. I gotta start off by saying, wow, the reaction to my last two SpongeBob theories has been insane.
How does she know? How does she know?
Squilliam, you lying, deceiving, who is that handsome young devil?
I'm glad you guys are enjoying my ridiculously deep dives into this show.
Don't be
I
next!
have to watch so much SpongeBob and read so much of the Wikipedia to put these theories together, but it's worth it because the writers actually take the time to set these things up. Now,
appreciate them bits, J. King. Appreciate them bits.
How do you come up with these crazy conspiracy theories? Okay. Well, I always start these theories by looking for the moments in the show that seem to be implying more than...
Nah, this shit was awkward. Looking at SpongeBob now and as a kid is two different things. This shit, it is kind of... I'll be thinking about some stuff now as a grown nigga, at being a big nigga, or a boy that's a man, and I'm like, this is creepy as fuck. A nigga in a gorilla suit zips out of, what's the name? Patrick.
And they're letting on. Like I've said before, SpongeBob is a weird show with lots of
what is
abstract
that?
humor, but I can usually understand the intent the writers had behind a weird joke. But then there's stuff like this.
I hope I still remember how to do this. Yeah.
And it's so confusing and weird that it feels like the writers are trying to imply something beyond just weirdness for the sake of comedy. And nowhere in the show is there more of these moments than with Mrs. Puff. And once I started looking into it, it led me down the deepest rabbit hole I've ever seen from this.
Nigga said she can bloat. Yeah, she's a blowfish. Like, if I was a fish, I want to get head by a blowfish. Especially like when she expand. That shit probably crazy. And it's already underwater, so it can't be dry. It's nothing but wet. Like a blowfish. That's your job. Like a clownfish, job to be funny. Like a blowfish, just sucking, just crazy. Like actually, when she at this point, this is her best. This is her blowiest form right here. Like when she's skinny, I mean, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be decent. But when she at her 100% expansion form, oh yeah, it's gonna be crazy.
The show. So let's begin. Uh-oh. Looks like I'm getting hacked by a hacker. I knew this would happen if I got too close to the truth. Well, it's a good thing this video is sponsored by NordVPN.
Nah.
Hyper criminal. All the hacking use NordVPN communicate 6 different countries. NordVPN code money better being hacked. Thanks, NordVPN. Now, without further ado, let's begin the theory.
I don't think Miss Puff is really thick. She's not thick. She considered a big bitch. I'm not
Puff
playing.
is a boating school teacher
That's
in
not
Bikini
thick.
Bottom. She's passed all of her students except for one, SpongeBob SquarePants. He's taken her driver's test hundreds of times, and he always ends up failing it and causing destruction and chaos that usually ends up with Mrs. Puff going to jail, despite it not really being her fault. We also know that she was once married, but her husband was killed by fishermen.
That's my driving teacher, Mrs. Puff.
Mrs. Puff? Oh, she's married.
Oh, no, Mr. Krabs. She's single.
Then what happened to Mr. Puff?
She doesn't like to talk about it.
Throughout the show, there are moments like this that seem to be hinting at her having a dark, mysterious past. And in Season 2, Episode 10, No Free Rides, we get the biggest clue about
appreciate
who
them
Mrs.
bits,
Puff really
J.K.
is. After SpongeBob fails the driving test yet again, Mrs. Puff has just had it with him and ends up just giving up and giving him his license even though he never really passed. She quickly realizes that this is a horrible idea and he'll probably end up destroying the entire town.
So much destruction. This reporter asks, why? Local consensus places the blame on this negligent, selfish driving instructor who...
Remember this clip, because it's going to be very important later on. And then she says this insanely revealing line.
What have I done? Everyone will know that I let him slide through school. I'll have to move to a new city, start a new boarding school with a new name. No, not again.
No, not again. Come on, it's like they're just begging.
Oh my gosh, chat. I'm not supposed to be here. We're living in a dream. We're living in a dream. It all makes sense now.
Someone to make a theory about this. So we now know Mrs. Puff was originally from a different town, she used to own a different boating school, and Mrs. Puff isn't even her real name. There's something in her past that she ran away from. Now, there's been some debate over whether she's actually referring to a new name for herself or for her boating school, but I do think she's talking about her own name, because if she's trying to run away from something in her past, she wouldn't start a new boating school with her real name in the title. Now, when she says again, I don't think she's just referring to starting a new life.
Everyone will know that I let him slide through school. Not again.
I think at her previous boating school, she had a terrible student just like Spongebob who she prematurely gave a license to, and it led to something so terrible happening that she had to run away and start a whole new life. In Season 3, Episode 5, Doing Time, we get a flashback to when she first opened up the school.
Where did I go wrong? With the opening of my new boating school, I pledge that as long as a student...
Now, I just noticed it. She got some little ass feet for a lot of body. Like she's like a potato, actually. She's more favoring a potato, a spud, than anything with these little ass feet. These some little ass feet. I just noticed that. Like it just gets smaller. Like her foundation is not strong enough to hold her temple. You know what I'm saying? It's architecture. What's it called? Architectural integrity is faulting. But she is more like a spud, like a potato.
...is willing to learn. I shall never give up.
Hi, I'm SpongeBob SquarePants.
With the opening of this new boating school, let's keep in mind that this is not her first boating school. Maybe the whole reason she's making this pledge now at her second school is because she gave up on a student at her previous school, and that led to her having to run away and start a new life. She's pledging to never make the same mistake again. Now let's skip ahead to one of the newer episodes. Season 12, Episode 21, Lighthouse Louie, where Mrs. Puff has SpongeBob organize all the stuff she keeps in the school's lighthouse. There's lots of interesting things hidden in the background, but the first thing that caught my eye was this file labeled Mrs. Puff. It makes sense for a teacher to have files on all their students, but why would she have a file about herself? But let's remember, she's not Mrs. Puff. That's a fake identity she created, and I'm willing to bet all of her fake identification documents are in this file. Back in No Free Rides, she just gives SpongeBob a license that she already had for him. So she clearly makes these licenses and would probably know how to make fake identifications. But that's not the only hint about Mrs. Puff's past in this lighthouse. There is something in here that directly confirms all of this. As SpongeBob swallows all of Mrs. Puff's junk, we see something very interesting for only a few frames. Deranged boat teacher makes getaway. 10 seasons later, and the creators are still hiding stuff about Mrs. Puff fleeing her old life. It might not look like it at first, but we actually...
Deranged boat teacher makes getaway. Distracts authority with balloon animals. Whoa. I thought it was a condom. That's a balloon animal. Wow, chat.
Get a ton of new information from this newspaper. This is from the New Kelp Post, which tells us Mrs. Puff originally lived in New Kelp City. Then there's a caption that reads, distracts authorities with balloon animals. And do you remember that clip from the beginning?
I hope I still remember how to do this. Yeah.
So whenever Mrs. Puff makes a getaway or commits a crime, she leaves behind a balloon animal to distract the police. I'm telling you guys, these writers don't just do stuff randomly, they have reasons for everything. And the most damning piece of evidence from this newspaper is actually the picture of Mrs. Puff. Kind of a strange photo, right? We have seen this exact same photo of her before. In the episode No Free Rides, when she imagines what would happen if SpongeBob got his license.
Local consensus places the blame on this negligent, selfish driving instructor.
This means that this isn't just her imagination of what might happen. This is also her remembering what happened when she lived in New Kelp City and prematurely gave one of her students a license. And I'm willing to bet that the fish reporting the news is the exact same one who reported about her in New Kelp City. Let me explain. We know from the episode Whatever Happened to SpongeBob that reporters from the Bikini Bottom News can also work for the New Kelp City News. But the real reason I think this is because of his hair. In the entire show, we have never seen this fish reporter with hair before.
Wow.
Why would the creators go out of their way to add that detail? Because Mrs. Puff isn't imagining him as he looks now. She's remembering him from years ago when he used to have hair, when he reported about her in New Kelp City. Mrs. Puff has been running from her past ever since, and is now forced to relive her experience with an unteachable student through SpongeBob. But reliving this trauma has pushed her to the point of complete insanity. And trust me when I say that you have no idea how delusional she actually is. Another running gag throughout the series is Mrs. Puff's occasional nervous breakdowns or moments of insanity because of SpongeBob, and they get more severe as.
Oh yeah, that's the one. That's the Puff I want right there, at her roundest form, with the rose still in the head. I do not. That's the Puff I want right there. That's it. Now tell me, tell me you ain't letting that go crazy. Miss Puff got surfer. What they got? Miss Puff got surfer. Is the chat moving too fast? I can't read it. What they say? She finna. I don't know what that is, but what she got? She got something. I don't know what he just said. Puff pussy. Pussy. Schizophrenia. Oh, schizophrenia. Okay, what's that mean? Oh, she gets scared. Oh, what I got to do with me? Oh, when I pull that motherfucker out, she gonna blow up. So I gotta scare her first, back up, then get busy, cause I don't want her to blow up on me. You know what I'm saying?
At first, she did care for SpongeBob, but in the newer episodes, she literally tries to kill SpongeBob just to get him out of her life. Even SpongeBob just walking up to her gives her severe PTSD.
Hi, Mrs. Puff.
Ah! Hit the brakes! SpongeBob! Watch the tree! Laugh!
Wait, Mrs. Puff. We're not driving.
But these mostly seem like just one-off moments, and for the most part, Mrs. Puff is still a functioning member of society, right? I'm going to show you that she's acting.
Yo, hold up one second. Where her panties at? She's going commando. She's a freak. You nasty bitch. She's a freak. Yo. She used to be a stripper. She's a freak. She has no drawers on. She has no drawers. Yo, I never even noticed that. That's not even appropriate for school. The little ass skirt. She got no titties. She got a little boy chest. Nah, she built bad. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think. Do they have titties in SpongeBob? But she has no draws. She's drawless. Unless it's the thong. Nah, she's drawless.
Actually much more insane.
Her back in hairy and fuck. I thought that was her spikes.
Some of the episodes she's in take place entirely in her own head. If we're talking about how insane Mrs. Puff is, there is no better place to start than the episode doing time. Once again, SpongeBob fails the boating test and causes destruction and chaos, which leads to Mrs. Puff going to jail. SpongeBob keeps breaking into jail to try and bust her out, but Mrs. Puff actually prefers being in jail over teaching him. We actually get another interesting line about Mrs. Puff's past in this episode.
Okay, you can do this, Puff. You can get through this without losing your sanity. Oh, that's a road we don't want to go down again.
So we know that Mrs. Puff has lost her sanity in the past, probably from her previous terrible student. But it seems like she's recovered since then, except in this
appreciate them bits, Jay. Appreciate them bits, Jay.
SpongeBob keeps appearing in impossible places until she gets thrown into solitary confinement, where each wall of the room transforms into a giant SpongeBob face. And then the episode ends in a way that's so weird and confusing that it rivals the infamous gorilla episode ending. As Mrs. Puff freaks out, she's suddenly transported back into the beginning of the episode when SpongeBob was taking the test. Except this time, SpongeBob gets arrested instead of her.
Help! Help! No! This is not a good time! No!
I can't believe it. It was all a dream. I'm not going to jail.
Why would you go to jail? You already did your time.
Forget it.
So what's really going on in this episode?
Free my nigga Bob till it's backwards, man. Free my nigga Bob.
Just caught in an endless loop? I think this entire episode is inside of Mrs. Puff's head, and she's actually on the outside the whole time, but she's been imagining herself inside of prison. I can explain. Listen closely to what the police officer tells Mrs. Puff.
I'm not going to jail.
Why would you go to jail? You already did your time.
Why would you go to jail? You already did your time. And then revealing she's still in a prison uniform despite being on the outside. So this scene is obviously inside of her head, which means everything we see is symbolic. And if we can understand the symbolism of it, we can understand what's really going on with Mrs. Puff. Notice how she's suddenly wearing a black and white striped prison uniform, even though the entire episode she's been wearing this orange jumpsuit. Why would the creators go to the extra effort to draw a whole new prison uniform?
Why would they do that, Chad?
Well, we've seen her wear this black and white prison uniform before. The very first time she went to prison back in Season 1, Episode 7, Hall Monitor. So when the police officer says, "You've already done your time," he's referring to the first time she went to jail. But why is she still wearing that uniform outside of prison? Well, she may have gotten out of jail, but she was by no means free. Having to teach SpongeBob is a prison in itself, and she manifests that by believing she's in jail and wearing a prison uniform despite being on the outside. This entire episode, every time SpongeBob magically appears, is all inside of her head. She is completely delusional, and hints that she's experiencing these hallucinations don't stop there. Just 6 episodes later, she goes to a house party SpongeBob throws, and while everyone is talking and having a good time,
Larry the
in the
Lobster.
background we see she's literally sitting by herself talking to an ice sculpture of SpongeBob. You can't tell me this isn't intentional. I mean, look at this. Now, back in the episode No Free Rides, there is a very strange picture inside of Mrs. Puff's home. It's a picture of Mrs. Puff inside of a picture of Mrs. Puff inside of a picture of Mrs. Puff, creating an infinite loop. This is something that has confused SpongeBob fans for years. But like everything in the show, there is a reason for it being there. One of the SpongeBob storyboard artists actually called it the biggest mystery in the entire show. If you think about it, this is just like the end of Doing Time, where she's stuck in an infinite loop of SpongeBob failing the driving test. Because it's all symbolic of what her life is, just an endless cycle of SpongeBob taking the test and failing, and no matter what she does to try and escape, she always ends up back in the same place at the end of the episode. So this picture is another symbolic manifestation of what she's feeling. We even see another one of these pictures all the way in Season 9, Episode 5, Bumper to Bumper. This is something that the show is consistently alluding to. Mrs. Puff is an unreliable narrator, and anything we see with her could potentially all be inside of her own head. In fact, I believe I found another episode that takes place inside of her head. In Season 9, Episode 17, SpongeBob
nigga did some
Long
work.
Pants, SpongeBob goes to a different boating instructor and actually gets his license. But as soon as he does, we briefly cut to Mrs. Puff waking up.
You pass.
I finally got my driver's license!
Lock your doors, bar your windows, it's the end of the world!
Now, this seems like it's probably just a throwaway gag where Mrs. Puff somehow senses that SpongeBob got his
Wait a
license,
minute.
and it causes a throwaway gag
There they go. She has them. Or, yeah, she has them.
where Mrs. Puff somehow senses that SpongeBob got his license, and it causes her to wake up and freak out. You know, it's a good bit, it's funny, but I have a question. If the joke is that she's supposed to be waking up at the exact time SpongeBob gets his license, how come she wakes up at night when SpongeBob clearly gets his license during the day? Because this entire episode actually takes place inside of Mrs. Puff's head, and this is the only part of the episode in the real world.
I don't know what that was all about, but I'm glad it's over.
But let me pause for a second. I'm sure some of you are already wondering if this contradicts my previous SpongeBob video, The Television Theory. If you haven't watched that one, the gist of it is that the entire show is a documentary television show, and everything we see is actually being secretly filmed by scuba divers, and there's a ton of evidence to support it. I'm very proud of that video, you should definitely check it out. But if everything's supposed to be from a camera, then how are we seeing things from inside Mrs. Puff's head? In fact, how do we see dreams and flashbacks and thought bubbles? Well, I think the simple answer is that even though we view the show through an objective camera lens, the world itself still follows the rules of a cartoon.
You can never tell another living soul. Wait, hold on! What's that? My pen is out of ink. Plankton! You'll never get me formula, not even in a flashback.
In the world of SpongeBob, you can imagine something and other
Me
people can
formula?
still see, record,
You won't
or
get
act
me
it.
formula.
That's just how cartoons work. Back to the theory, we know that her insanity has caused her to live a life of delusion. But if you remember back to the Lighthouse episode, she's also become an extreme hoarder. And looking at her collection of junk
She's
is
a
like a look
hoarder.
directly into her mind. So there's gotta be something we can learn about her from it. There's a picture of her boyfriend, Mr. Krabs, the hall monitor belt she gives her students, the mean drawings her students make her, SpongeBob's diary, a boating safety helmet. Wait, SpongeBob's diary? Why does she have SpongeBob's diary? The last time we saw that, it was safely put away in SpongeBob's library. What's it doing in her lighthouse? And why does she have Squidward's painting? And a table from the Krusty Krab? And SpongeBob's bike? And Squidward's teddy bear? And the hair curlers Mr. Krabs had? And that statue of Squidward? And that diamond ring? And that crown? And that bucket of radioactive waste? And that jellyfish sign? Oh my god. Mrs. Puff is a kleptomaniac. Mrs. Puff has been stealing from everyone in Bikini Bottom. I can even prove that her pet snail from Season 3, Episode 19 was stolen.
My snail is up a tree. I've had her since I was a little girl. No!
You've had that snail since you've been a little girl, huh? Then how come that is the exact same snail Squidward had—
No way!
in the Great Snail Race?
I wouldn't let Snelly here play with that mongrel mutt. She's a purebred. See, she even has her own papers.
She's stealing purebred snails? It has its own degree. I don't even have a degree. Miss Puff's a thief. She's a thief, a super freak. She wears no drawers. She has skins of forensic, and oh my gosh, what's it called? She's a kleptomaniac.
He even has her paperwork. Mrs. Puff clearly stole the snail from Squidward. But why the hell would Mrs. Puff steal all this other junk? What possible use could she have for any of it? We can find the answer to that question by looking at this green hat and this purple jacket. These were gifts Mr. Krabs bought her on their first date, but she ended up feeling uncomfortable receiving them and gave them back to him.
I'm afraid I just don't feel comfortable accepting all these gifts.
Except apparently she's not too uncomfortable to steal them back afterwards. So clearly Mrs. Puff isn't stealing this stuff because she wants to use it. She just steals for the thrill of it. Maybe stealing things is her way of coping with the insanity of her everyday life. And remember, this isn't the first time she's gone insane.
You can get through this without losing your sanity. Oh, that's a road we don't want to go down again.
In fact, I have reason to believe that she started stealing things way back whenever she first went insane.
I hope I still remember how to do this.
I don't think she's just talking about remembering how to make balloon animals. She's probably also referring to remembering how to steal a boat. And if that's not enough for you, in a SpongeBob comic book, she actually admits that she used to rob banks and she wears the exact same ski mask. Mrs. Puff lives a completely delusional and miserable life, all because she has to teach SpongeBob how to drive. It's led her to steal from the people she cares about and completely disassociate from reality. But that begs a very important question. If SpongeBob is caught—
Okay, I'm sober right now. I'm just like this all the time. You never know when I'm high. I'm like this all the time. You can ask anybody. I'm like this all the time, except when I'm sleeping.
causing her life to be so miserable, then why does she even keep teaching him? After all the destruction and pain he's caused, she'd totally be justified to expel him, right? I mean, she will literally try and kill him so she doesn't have to teach him, but for some reason she can't just expel him. It's almost like there's someone forcing her to teach SpongeBob. Back to the episode No Free Rides. After prematurely giving SpongeBob a license, she steals his boatmobile so he can't hurt anyone. In the end, this causes her to get arrested and go to jail, but then SpongeBob tells her this.
And besides, the warden says she'll let you go early if you do her a favor.
What's that?
Free driving lessons!
She'll get to leave prison early if she gives free driving lessons. That seems like an oddly specific requirement. And that's not the only time this gets mentioned either. In Season 9, Episode 5, Bumper to Bumper, we get this scene.
If only SpongeBob could pass
I'm
his
doing
boating
good,
test,
Slatty boy.
He'd be
Appreciate
out of
that.
my life once and for all. Unfortunately, I keep getting reminded of the consequences if I get too angry with the little nuisance.
Consequences. Are you
Y'all
telling
funny,
me that if
Chad.
she refuses to teach SpongeBob specifically, she'll be violating her parole and get sent back to jail? Why does the prison even care if Mrs. Puff teaches SpongeBob? Is it just part of some weird community service? But things start to get really suspicious at the end of Season 7, Episode 5, Summer Job. Once again, Mrs. Puff ends up in jail, but this time she's forced to go to a prison boating school.
Oh, wow! A driver's education class!
Good day, class!
Ah! I must be having a nightmare! What's he?
I kind of get the gist of it. kind of get the gist of it. SpongeBob. She's stressing. Okay, I get it now. She's a thief. She has schizophrenia theory. She's kleptomatic. She's fighting demons in her mind. She can't control her weight. She wears no drawers. And them little red boots. It's something about them little red boots. I'm gonna find out about them boots. Watch. I'm gonna make my own theory about them boots. Them little Balenci boots.